The transport ship dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shudder. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim gripped his seat as the vessel shook around him. Through the small window, he could see Kepler 442b spinning slowly below them. The planet looked dead from space. Gray clouds covered most of its surface, and no lights showed from any cities or settlements. "First time seeing a prison world?" asked Commander Nari Park from the seat across from him. She was studying a data tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "Yes," Hyunwoo replied. "It looks empty." Nari nodded. "That is the point. No one wants to live near the things they keep here." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention passengers. We will dock at Station Omega 7 in 10 minutes. Please prepare for inspection and quarantine procedures." Hyunwoo looked at his research equipment cases. Everything had been checked 3 times already, but he knew the station guards would check again. The Galactic Council did not take chances when it came to their most secure prison. "Are you sure about this mission?" Nari asked. "The Council only agreed because they think we will fail. Or die," Hyunwoo said quietly. Nari raised an eyebrow. "That does not worry you?" Hyunwoo thought about his years studying dangerous animals on Earth. Tigers, bears, venomous snakes, sharks. Every expert had told him the same thing. Understand the animal, respect it, but do not fear it. Fear made you stupid. Fear made you dead. "No," he said. "Fear will not help me do my job." The docking procedure took another hour. The station was massive, built like a fortress in space. Thick metal walls surrounded every section. Armed guards patrolled every corridor. Warning lights flashed constantly, reminding everyone that danger was never far away. Commandant Thektar met them at the airlock. He was a Vrex, tall and thin with gray skin that looked like old leather. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "Humans," he said, the word dripping with disgust. "I still do not understand why the Council allows your kind here." "We are here to study your prisoners," Nari replied calmly. "The Council approved our mission." Thektar's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Study them? Most species cannot even look at our guests without going insane. What makes you think soft little humans can do better?" Hyunwoo stepped forward. "We would like to see the Void Ripper first." The Commandant went very still. Several nearby guards stopped their conversations and stared at the human. The corridor became so quiet that Hyunwoo could hear the station's air recycling systems humming in the walls. "The Void Ripper," Thektar repeated slowly. "You want to see the Void Ripper?" "Yes." Thektar began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. "Oh, this will be entertaining. Very well, human. Let us go see our star prisoner." They walked through corridor after corridor. The station was like a maze with security checkpoints every few hundred meters. Each checkpoint required different identification scans, voice recognition, and biometric verification. The deeper they went, the thicker the walls became. "Tell me about the creature," Hyunwoo said as they walked. Thektar glanced at him with surprise. "You do not know? Your species requested this mission without even researching what you would face? I know the basic facts. I want to hear from someone who has seen it." The Commandant was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost afraid. It came from the dark nebulae beyond the outer rim. "We do not know how it got to civilized space, but once it arrived, it began killing. 17 star systems, hundreds of thousands dead. It would appear on a world, kill everything it could find, then disappear." They reached another checkpoint. This one had twice as many guards as the others. It took the combined fleets of 6 species to capture it. Thektar continued. "Even then, we lost 47 ships. When we finally contained it, the creature killed 38 researchers and guards in its first week here." "How long has it been contained?" Nari asked. 3 years, 4 months, 12 days. Thektar knew the exact time. Every day it tries to escape. Every day it fails. But it never stops trying. They entered an elevator that dropped down into the planet's core. The ride took nearly 5 minutes. When the doors opened, they stepped into an observation deck surrounded by thick, transparent metal. There! Tektar pointed to the center of the chamber below. Hyunwoo looked down and saw something that made his breath catch. The creature was huge, at least 4 meters tall and twice as long. Its body looked like it was made of living crystal, with surfaces that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. Tentacles moved around its main body like snakes, each one tipped with claws that could cut through steel. Too many eyes dotted its head and shoulders, each one glowing with a soft blue light. But what struck Hyunwoo most was how the creature moved. It paced back and forth in its cage like a caged tiger he had once seen in a zoo. The same restless energy, the same desperate need to escape. The containment field uses a combination of energy barriers and sonic deterrents, Tektar explained. Any biological creature that gets too close experiences immediate pain and disorientation. As if it could hear them talking, the creature suddenly looked up at the observation deck. Its many eyes focused on the humans, and a sound filled the chamber. It was not quite a roar and not quite a scream. It was something worse. A sound that seemed to reach directly into the brain and squeeze. Nari grabbed her head and stumbled backward. Several of the alien guards cried out in pain. Even Tektar winced and stepped away from the window. But Hyunwoo stood perfectly still. He looked down at the creature and felt something he had not expected. Not fear, not horror, something else entirely. Interesting, he said quietly. Tektar stared at him in disbelief. That sound drives most species insane within seconds. How are you not affected? Hyunwoo continued watching the creature. It had stopped making the terrible sound and was now studying him as intently as he was studying it. There was something in its posture, something in the way it held its head, that reminded him of every frightened animal he had ever encountered. I think, Hyunwoo said slowly, it is trying to communicate. The commandant laughed harshly. Communicate? That thing is a monster, a killing machine. It has no more intelligence than a virus. But as Hyunwoo watched, the creature tilted its massive head to one side, just like a curious dog might do, just like any intelligent animal trying to understand something new. I want to go down there, he said. The silence that followed was so complete that Hyunwoo wondered if the station's life support had failed. Finally, Tektar found his voice. That is completely impossible. Why? Because it will kill you in seconds. Hyunwoo finally looked away from the creature. Maybe, but maybe not. I would like to find out. Tektar stared at the human as if he had just announced his intention to fly into a star. You are completely insane. Probably, Hyunwoo agreed, but I am also very good at my job. Below them, the Void Ripper had stopped pacing. It stood perfectly still, all of its eyes focused upward, as if it too was listening to their conversation. As if it understood that something important was about to happen, something that would change everything. The emergency meeting lasted 3 hours. Hyunwoo sat quietly while alien officials argued in 6 different languages. Some voices were angry. Others sounded afraid. All of them seemed to think he was completely crazy. This is beyond dangerous, growled Administrator Veltok, a heavy-set Corvin with 4 arms. No biological being has survived direct contact with a Void Ripper. Ever. The human will die in seconds, added Dr. Zathera, the station's chief medical officer. Then we will have to explain to the council why we allowed this foolishness. Commander Nari leaned forward in her chair. With respect, Administrator, humanity has extensive experience with dangerous predators. On our world, we have learned to work safely with creatures that other species would consider monsters. Tektar snorted. Your little earth animals are nothing compared to what we keep here. This creature has killed trained warriors from a dozen species. What makes you think one soft human can survive what they could not? Hyunwoo finally spoke. May I ask how those warriors approached the creature? The room fell silent. Tektar's black eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Did they try to fight it? Capture it? Use weapons or force? Of course they used weapons, Veltok said. How else would you approach such a monster? On my world, we learned long ago that approaching a dangerous animal with weapons usually ends badly. For both sides. Dr. Zathara made a sound that might have been laughter. So you plan to approach it unarmed? That is even more insane. Not unarmed. Just not with weapons. Hyunwoo pulled out his datapad and showed them images from Earth. These are pictures of humans working with creatures that could kill them easily. Sharks, bears, large cats, venomous snakes. The key is understanding what the animal needs and respects. The aliens looked at the pictures with confusion and disgust. To them, the images showed humans being dangerously stupid with obviously deadly creatures. Your point? Thektar asked. Every aggressive animal is aggressive for a reason. Fear, hunger, protecting territory, protecting young. If you can understand the reason, you can often find a solution. The Void Ripper's reason is simple, Beltak said firmly. It kills because that is what it was made to do. It is a weapon, not an animal. Then why has it been trying to communicate? The question stopped all conversation. Several aliens exchanged confused glances. Communicate? Dr. Zethara repeated. The sounds it makes. You call them psychic attacks, but what if they are not attacks at all? What if they are attempts to speak? Thektar stood up abruptly. Enough of this nonsense. The creature is contained for good reason. It stays contained. Commander Nari also stood. Commandant. With respect, the Council specifically sent us here to study these beings using human methods. If you refuse to allow that study, you are disobeying direct Council orders. The Commandant's face went very pale. Disobeying the Council was a career-ending mistake. After a long moment, he sat back down. Fine, he said through clenched teeth. But when this human dies horribly, I want it on record that I advised against it. Understood, Nari replied. What do you need to make this happen safely? Dr. Zethara pulled up building schematics on the wall display. The containment chamber has emergency systems. If the creature attacks, we can flood the area with paralysis gas in under 10 seconds. That might harm the creature, Hyunwoo said. Better than letting it kill you, Thektar replied. What about partial containment? Can you lower the energy barrier but keep backup systems ready? The aliens spent another hour debating technical details. Finally, they agreed on a compromise. Hyunwoo could enter the outer containment area, but 3 layers of emergency barriers would remain between him and the creature. If anything went wrong, he could be pulled to safety instantly. 2 days later, Hyunwoo stood in the airlock outside the containment chamber. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. Through the thick window, he could see the Void Ripper pacing in its cage. Vital signs are normal, reported Dr. So-Young Lee from the research ship in orbit. Communications are clear. Weapon systems armed and ready, added Thektar from the control room. I would prefer no weapons, Hyunwoo said quietly. Not your choice. Human. The airlock cycled open. Hyunwoo stepped into the outer containment area. Immediately, alarms began sounding. Red lights flashed everywhere. The Void Ripper stopped pacing and turned toward him. For a moment, neither human nor creature moved. They simply looked at each other across 30 meters of empty space and 3 energy barriers. Then the creature opened its mouth and made that terrible sound again, the psychic scream that drove other species to madness. In the control room, several alien technicians fled their posts. Others pressed their hands to their heads in pain, but Hyunwoo just stood there listening. He tilted his head slightly, the same way the creature had done 2 days earlier. The sound was complex with layers and patterns, not random noise. Not mindless rage. It is trying to say something, he said into his communicator. It is trying to liquefy your brain, Thektar snapped back. The Void Ripper fell silent. All of its many eyes focused on Hyunwoo with startling intensity. Then it did something that made everyone in the control room gasp. It sat down, not collapsed from exhaustion, not crouched to attack. It lowered its massive body to the floor and folded its tentacles beneath itself, the way a cat might sit while watching something interesting. Did it just sit? Dr. Lee asked over the communicator. Yes, Hyunwoo replied. It is watching me. Impossible, breathed Dr. Zethara. That creature has never shown non-aggressive behavior, ever. Hyunwoo took a step forward. The creature's head followed his movement, but it remained sitting. Its crystalline body caught the chamber's lights and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. I am going to lower the first barrier, Hyunwoo announced. Absolutely not, Thektar said immediately. The creature is calm. This might be our only chance to make real contact. It is pretending to be calm. The moment you get close enough, it will kill you. But Commander Nari's voice cut through the argument. Do it, Hyunwoo. We trust your judgment. The first energy barrier flickered and died. Now only 2 barriers separated human from creature. The distance between them had shrunk from 30 meters to 20. The Void Ripper did not move. It continued sitting, watching, waiting. Hyunwoo took another step forward, then another. Each step brought him closer to something that had killed hundreds of beings across 17 star systems. Hyunwoo, Dr. Lee said quietly, your heart rate is actually dropping. How are you staying so calm? It is not acting like a killer, he replied. Look at its posture. The way it holds its head, this is not aggressive behavior. You are reading body language on an alien creature, Thektar said. That is impossible. Fear makes creatures behave in similar ways across species. So does curiosity, so does loneliness. That last word seemed to hit the alien observers like a physical blow. Loneliness. None of them had ever considered that their prisoners might be lonely. The Void Ripper shifted slightly, lowering its massive head closer to the floor. The movement was almost submissive, like a dog showing it meant no harm. I am lowering the second barrier, Hyunwoo said. This time, no one argued. They were too fascinated by what they were seeing. The second barrier disappeared. Now only 10 meters and one final energy field separated them. The creature made a new sound, much softer than its earlier scream. Almost like purring if something that size could purr. It is singing, Dr. Lee asked in wonder. I think it is trying to be friendly, Hyunwoo replied. He reached into his pack and pulled out something that made the alien observers go completely silent. It was an earth apple, bright red and perfectly fresh. You brought food? Thektar asked in disbelief. Every animal understands food as a gesture of peace. The Void Ripper's many eyes focused on the apple with laser intensity. Its tentacles moved restlessly but not aggressively, more like excitement. I am going to lower the final barrier, Hyunwoo announced. If you do that, you will die, Thektar said flatly. Maybe, but I do not think so. The final barrier died. Nothing stood between human and monster except 10 meters of empty air. For a heartbeat, everything was perfectly still. Then the Void Ripper moved. It exploded forward with impossible speed, crossing the distance in less than a second. Its massive form filled Hyunwoo's vision as claws and tentacles reached for him. In the control room, aliens screamed and reached for emergency buttons. But Hyunwoo did not run. He did not flinch. He stood perfectly still, holding out the apple, and smiled. The creature stopped so suddenly that air rushed past Hyunwoo's face. Massive crystalline jaws hung open just centimeters from his head. Razor-sharp claws had frozen in mid-swipe, close enough that he could see his reflection in their polished surfaces. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the Void Ripper very gently closed its mouth and lowered its claws. It brought its great head down until it was level with Hyunwoo's, and made the softest sound any of them had ever heard it make. A sound that could only be described as a whimper. Hello, Hyunwoo said quietly. I brought you something. He held out the apple. The creature looked at it, then at him, then back at the apple. Very carefully, using just the tip of one claw, it took the fruit from his hand. The Void Ripper held the apple in one massive claw, turning it slowly as if it had never seen anything so wonderful. In the control room, every alien observer stood frozen in shock. The most dangerous creature in known space was examining a piece of fruit like a curious child. Impossible, Dr. Zathara whispered. The creature has never accepted food from any being. We have been force-feeding it through automated systems for 3 years. Hyunwoo watched as the creature brought the apple closer to what he assumed was its mouth. The crystalline jaws opened to reveal rows of teeth that could cut through starship hull plating. But instead of devouring the fruit, the Void Ripper paused and made a soft questioning sound. I think it is asking permission, Hyunwoo said quietly into his communicator. Permission for what? Commander Nari asked from orbit. To eat. It wants to know if it is allowed. Thektar made a choking sound. Allowed? It is a prisoner. It eats what we give it when we give it. But Hyunwoo nodded at the creature and made an encouraging gesture with his hands. Go ahead. It is for you. The Void Ripper's many eyes brightened. It bit into the apple with surprising delicacy, careful not to destroy the fruit with its powerful jaws. As soon as the taste hit its mouth, the creature's entire body changed. The violent red glow that had always emanated from its crystalline skin faded to a soft blue. The aggressive posture melted away as its massive shoulders relaxed. Most shocking of all, the creature began to make a sound that could only be described as purring. By the void, breathed Administrator Veltok. Its bio readings are completely different. stress hormones dropping, brain activity shifting to pleasure centers. How is this possible? Dr. So-Young Lee's voice came through the communicator with barely controlled excitement. I am analyzing the spectral composition of its home nebula. The minerals in Earth apples are almost identical to what it would have eaten in its natural environment. You mean it has been starving? Hyunwoo asked, though he kept his voice calm and low so as not to startle the creature. Not starving, but the synthetic nutrients we provide have no connection to its biological needs. Imagine eating nothing but flavorless paste for 3 years. The Void Ripper finished the apple and looked at Hyunwoo with what could only be hope, its massive head tilted to one side in a gesture that was surprisingly familiar. Every pet owner in the galaxy would have recognized it immediately. It wants more, Hyunwoo observed. We cannot give it more, Tektar said firmly. Feeding schedule are strict for good reason. What reason? Commander Nari asked pointedly. The Commandant paused. Because that is how we control dangerous creatures. But it is not acting dangerous right now. Hyunwoo reached into his pack again and pulled out a second apple. The creature's eyes tracked the movement with intense focus, but it made no aggressive moves. Instead, it sat back slightly and waited patiently. Remarkable, Dr. Lee commented. It has learned to wait for permission in just minutes. That suggests very high intelligence. Or very good training, Tektar muttered. Hyunwoo offered the second apple. This time, the Void Ripper took it even more gently than the first. But instead of eating immediately, it held the fruit and made a complex series of sounds. The sounds had patterns, rhythms, almost like language. Dr. Lee, are you recording this? Hyunwoo asked every second. The vocalization patterns are incredibly complex. This is not random noise. The creature continued its vocal display while holding the apple. After several minutes, Hyunwoo realized what was happening. It is saying thank you, he announced. The control room erupted in disbelief. Impossible, Dr. Zethara insisted. No creature in this facility has ever shown gratitude. They are animals. This one is not, Hyunwoo replied. He looked directly into the creature's many eyes and spoke clearly. You are welcome. The Void Ripper went completely still. Then it made a single, pure tone that seemed to fill the entire chamber with warmth. In the control room, several aliens stopped arguing and listened in wonder. That sound, Administrator Veltak said slowly. It is beautiful. The creature finally ate the second apple, savoring each bite. When it finished, it did something that made everyone gasp. It reached out one massive claw and very gently touched Hyunwoo's shoulder. The touch was feather-light, careful not to harm the fragile human. Claws that could slice through metal barely made contact with his clothing, but the gesture was unmistakable. It is showing affection, Commander Nari whispered. Hyunwoo slowly raised his own hand and placed it against the creature's crystalline skin. The surface was warm and smooth, with subtle vibrations running through it like a heartbeat. The bio readings are off the charts, Dr. Lee reported. Both species are showing massive releases of bonding hormones. The creature's stress indicators have dropped to almost zero. Bonding hormones? Tektar asked weakly. The same chemicals that promote attachment between parent and offspring in most species, or between bonded pairs. The implications hit everyone at the same time. This was not a mindless monster being temporarily pacified by food. This was an intelligent being forming a genuine emotional connection with the human who had shown it kindness. How long has it been isolated? Hyunwoo asked, his hand still resting on the creature's flank. Since we captured it, Tektar replied. It is too dangerous to allow contact with others. 3 years of complete isolation. No wonder it was aggressive. Hyunwoo felt sick thinking about what that kind of loneliness would do to any intelligent being. The Void Ripper made another soft sound and leaned into his touch. The massive predator that had terrorized 17 star systems was seeking comfort like a lonely pet. We need to completely rethink its housing, Hyunwoo said. The sonic deterrence, the sterile environment, the forced feeding. All of it is making the problem worse. Making what problem worse? Administrator Veltak asked. The depression, the sensory deprivation, the social isolation. You have taken an intelligent being and driven it to madness through torture. The word torture hit the alien officials like a physical blow. None of them had ever thought of containment procedures as torture. They were just following standard protocols for dangerous creatures. What do you suggest? Dr. Zethara asked quietly. Hyunwoo looked around the sterile metal chamber with its harsh lights and constant alarm sounds. First, we make this place livable. Real food, natural light cycles, sounds from its home environment. Then we work on communication. Communication? Thektar repeated. It has been trying to talk to you for 3 years. You just never listened. As if to prove his point, the Void Ripper began making those complex vocalizations again. But this time Hyunwoo listened carefully to the patterns. Some sounds were repeated. Others had clear emotional tones. Dr. Lee, can you run a linguistic analysis on these sounds? Already started. There are definitely recurring patterns that suggest structured language. The creature seemed to understand that they were trying to comprehend its speech. It simplified its vocalizations, breaking them down into smaller parts and repeating key elements. It is teaching us, Hyunwoo realized. It knows we do not understand, so it is trying to help us learn. The revelation silenced everyone. After 3 years of viewing the Void Ripper as a mindless killing machine, they were watching it actively attempt to bridge the communication gap between species. There is something else, Dr. Lee added hesitantly. The creature's vocalizations include mathematical concepts, prime numbers, geometric sequences. It is trying to establish that it understands advanced mathematics. Why would it do that? Commander Nari asked. To prove intelligence, Hyunwoo replied. It knows that we judge intelligence by mathematical ability. It is trying to show us that it thinks, that it reasons, that it deserves to be treated as a person rather than an animal. The Void Ripper made one final long vocalization. This one was different from the others. Sadder. More desperate. What do you think that one meant? Administrator Veltok asked. Hyunwoo met the creature's many eyes and saw something there that broke his heart. Pain. Loneliness. Hope, struggling against despair. I think, he said quietly, it was asking us not to leave it alone again. In the control room, several aliens looked away in shame. For the first time, they were beginning to understand what they had really been doing to their prisoners. We will not leave you alone, Hyunwoo promised the creature. Not anymore. The Void Ripper pressed its massive head against his hand and made the softest, most grateful sound any of them had ever heard. In that moment, the most feared predator in the galaxy revealed itself to be something else entirely. A person. Lost, hurt, and desperate for connection, but still a person. Engineer Taemin Choi arrived on Station Omega-7 3 days later, with a team of specialists and enough equipment to rebuild half the facility. He found Hyunwoo sitting beside the Void Ripper's containment chamber. Both human and creature engaged in what could only be called conversation. How long have you been here? Taemin asked, setting down his equipment cases. 18 hours, Hyunwoo replied without taking his eyes off the creature. We are making progress. The Void Ripper had learned to produce simpler sounds that humans could more easily understand. In return, Hyunwoo had been teaching it basic human words and concepts. The exchange was slow, but definitely communication. The Council is demanding daily reports, Taemin said. They want to know if this is just a temporary behavioral change. Show them this. Hyunwoo gestured to a data pad covered with mathematical symbols. It solved every equation I gave it. Calculus, quantum mechanics, stellar navigation problems. This creature is not just intelligent. It might be smarter than most council members. Taemin looked at the equations and whistled softly. Some of these are graduate-level astrophysics problems. It solved them in minutes, without any tools except its own mind. The Void Ripper noticed Taemin examining the pad and made a questioning sound. Hyunwoo spoke to it in the mixture of human words and creature sounds they had developed. I told it you are here to improve its living conditions, Hyunwoo explained. The creature's response was immediate and emotional. It pressed against the remaining energy barrier and made rapid, excited vocalizations. What is it saying? It wants to know if that means others will come. Others of its kind, Taemin felt a chill. There are others? According to what I can understand, yes. The Council has been capturing its people for decades. This one thinks it might be the last free member of its species. The implications were staggering. If the Void Rippers were an intelligent species rather than individual monsters, then the Council had been committing systematic genocide while calling it pest control. We need to document everything, Taemin said grimly. If this gets out, it will destroy the Council's credibility. It should, Hyunwoo replied. Look at what they have done. Over the next week, Taemin and his team completely redesigned the creature's habitat. They removed the harsh sonic deterrents and replaced them with holographic projectors, showing images of deep space nebulae. The sterile metal walls were covered with panels that could display the swirling colors and patterns of the creature's home region. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Void Ripper's stress levels plummeted. Its aggressive behaviors disappeared entirely. For the first time in 3 years, it was able to rest peacefully. The sonic deterrents were causing constant pain, Dr. So-Young Lee reported from the research ship. Imagine having someone play loud, discordant music directly into your brain 24 hours a day for 3 years. No wonder it was violent, Taemin muttered. But the real breakthrough came when they introduced the creature to other prisoners in the facility. Lieutenant Colonel Jin Soo-yoon had been documenting the facility's other inmates, and he made a discovery that changed everything. 17 different species, he reported to the assembled team, all classified as irredeemably dangerous monsters, all captured in violent confrontations with Council forces. What is the pattern? Commander Nari asked via communication link. They are all highly intelligent, and they all come from regions of space that the Council has declared off-limits to civilian traffic. The pattern was clear and horrible. The Council was not protecting the galaxy from monsters. They were systematically destroying any species that might pose a threat to their power. We tested communication protocols with 3 other prisoners, Jinsu continued. All of them responded positively to nonviolent contact. All of them showed signs of advanced intelligence. The Council will never admit this, Tektar said quietly. The Commandant had been shaken by the revelations about his prisoners. Too much depends on the narrative that we are protecting civilization. Then we make them admit it, Nari replied firmly. The breakthrough in communication came when Dr. Mi Kyung-seo arrived with advanced translation equipment. She was a specialist in xenolinguistics, and she immediately recognized patterns in the creature's vocalizations that others had missed. It is not just one language, she explained to the fascinated observers. The creature is speaking at least 4 different dialects. It appears to be a linguist itself. Why would it know multiple languages? Administrator Veltok asked. Because it was a translator, Mi Kyung replied. Before the Council captured it, this creature served as a diplomatic interpreter for its species. The revelation hit everyone like a thunderbolt. The monster that had terrorized 17 star systems was actually a diplomat, someone whose job had been to prevent exactly the kind of violence that had ultimately consumed its life. It was trying to make peace, Yunwoo said slowly. The attacks on those star systems. It was not raiding. It was trying to establish communication. Mi Kyung nodded grimly. The linguistic patterns suggest formal diplomatic protocols. It was following first contact procedures from its own culture. And we treated it as an invasion force, Tektar said, his voice hollow with guilt. Through painstaking translation work, they finally learned the creature's story. Its species had detected Council expansion into their region of space and had sent diplomatic envoys to establish peaceful relations. But the Council had interpreted their approach as hostile and had responded with military force. 17 star systems, the creature explained through the translation device. 17 attempts at peaceful contact. Each one met with violence. Each envoy killed or captured. You are the last envoy, Hyunwoo realized. Yes, when diplomacy failed, my people tried to rescue the captured envoys. The Council called this terrorism and sent fleets to destroy our worlds. The room fell silent as the full scope of the tragedy became clear. An entire civilization had been destroyed because of miscommunication and fear. How many of your people survived? Mi Kyung asked gently. The creature's response was barely audible through the translator. I do not know. I have been alone here for 3 years. I do not know if any others still live. Dr. Lee pulled up star charts showing the creature's home region. These systems are all listed as cleared zones. No life signs detected. Because we sterilized them, Tektar said quietly. Standard procedure for hostile worlds. We burned everything. The Void Ripper made a sound of grief so profound that several humans began crying. This being had watched its entire civilization die while trapped in a cage, powerless to help or even mourn properly. There might be survivors, Jinsu said quickly. Hidden colonies, refugee ships, scattered populations. If some of your people escaped, they could still be out there. The creature's many eyes focused on him with desperate hope. You would help search for them? Yes, Hyunwoo promised. If any of your people still live, we will find them. But even as they made the promise, everyone understood the larger problem. The Council would never allow such a search. Admitting that they had committed genocide against a peaceful species would mean the end of their authority. They will try to silence us, Nari warned. All of us. The moment they realize what we have discovered, they will declare us threats to galactic security. Then we make sure the truth gets out first, Taman replied. Document everything. Spread the information as widely as possible. The Void Ripper listened to their discussion through the translator. When they finished, it made a request that surprised everyone. I wish to speak to the other prisoners. If they are also survivors of Council aggression, we should coordinate our testimonies. Testimonies? Administrator Veltok asked. For the trial, the creature replied simply. When the galaxy learns what the Council has done, there will be a trial. We survivors must be ready to speak for our dead peoples. The quiet confidence in its voice was chilling. This being had spent 3 years planning for justice while enduring torture. It had never lost hope that the truth would eventually come out. There will be a trial, Hyunwoo agreed. We will make sure of it. Over the following days, they established communication with 12 other prisoners. Each one told a similar story. Peaceful species destroyed by Council aggression. Survivors captured and imprisoned as monsters to hide the evidence of genocide. 43 civilizations, Mi Kyung reported after compiling all the testimonies. The Council has destroyed 43 intelligent species over the past century. How many beings died? Commander Nari asked. Billions, maybe trillions. We are looking at the largest genocide in galactic history. The weight of that knowledge settled over everyone like a crushing burden. They were not just prison guards and researchers anymore. They were witnesses to crimes beyond imagination. And somewhere in the depths of space, Council enforcement fleets were already moving to silence them forever. The emergency transmission from Council headquarters arrived at Eero 347 station time. Captain Yejin Kang was awakened in her quarters aboard the research ship New Seoul by the urgent priority signal that meant immediate action was required. Captain, her communications officer reported, we have a code black directive from the Council. All human operations at Station Omega 7 are to cease immediately. Yejin reviewed the orders with growing alarm. Not only were they ordered to withdraw, but the directive included authorization for terminal sanitation procedures if compliance was not immediate. They want to sterilize the entire facility, she realized. Everyone on that station is going to die. She immediately contacted Commander Nari. We have a problem. The Council knows about our discoveries and they are sending a fleet to silence everyone. How long do we have? Nari asked. The fleet left Council space 2 days ago. They will arrive in 6 hours. On the station, the news spread quickly. The alien staff reacted with panic and despair. Many had families in Council space who would suffer if they were labeled as traitors. I have served the Council for 30 years, Administrator Veltok said, his forearms shaking with emotion. My entire career, my pension, my family status, all gone. Your career was built on genocide, Hyunwoo replied bluntly. Did you think there would be no consequences when the truth came out? But Thektar surprised everyone by standing firm. The human is right. We have been accessories to mass murder. If we die exposing the truth, at least we die with honor. Dr. Zithara nodded agreement. I became a healer to preserve life. What we have been doing here is the opposite of healing. The prisoners had also learned about the approaching fleet. Instead of panic, they showed grim determination. The Void Ripper spoke for all of them when it said, We have waited 3 years for justice. We will not be silenced now. Dr. Mi-kyung Seo worked frantically to complete her translation of the prisoner testimonies. Each story was worse than the last. Entire planets burned, refugee ships destroyed, children killed to prevent future revenge. The Council's own records document everything, she reported. They kept detailed files of every pest control operation. They never expected anyone to question their methods. Lieutenant Colonel Jin Soo-yoon was transmitting copies of everything to every news network and government in known space. But he knew that most of the data would be suppressed or discredited by Council influence. We need something dramatic, he said, something the Council cannot explain away or cover up. The answer came from an unexpected source. The Void Ripper approached Hyunwoo with a proposal that made everyone go silent. Let us speak directly to the galaxy, it said through the translator. Put us on public broadcast. Let every citizen see that we are people, not monsters. The Council will never allow public broadcasts from here, Commander Nari pointed out. Then we broadcast from somewhere they cannot stop us, the creature replied. Your ship. We come with you. The idea was so audacious that it took several minutes for anyone to respond. Evacuating intelligent prisoners from a Council facility was essentially an act of war. If we do this, there is no going back, Captain Yejin warned. We will be marked as rebels and terrorists. We are already marked, Hyunwoo replied. The moment we started treating these beings as people instead of monsters, we became enemies of the Council. Engineer Tae-min ran calculations on his datapad. The new Seoul has large cargo bays that could be modified for passenger transport. We could evacuate maybe 20 beings. All of us or none of us, the Void Ripper said firmly. We will not abandon each other again. There are 47 prisoners, Dr. Zethara pointed out, and most of them are very large. Then we make multiple trips, Nari decided, or we commandeer additional ships. As if summoned by their conversation, new contacts appeared on the station's sensors. But these were not Council enforcement vessels. These were civilian ships, cargo haulers, and passenger transports, all broadcasting identification codes from independent worlds. How did they know to come here? Administrator Veltok asked in confusion. Jinsu smiled grimly. I may have mentioned our situation to a few sympathetic journalists, and those journalists may have mentioned it to people who care about preventing genocide. The first ship to dock was a massive freight hauler called the Free Trader. Its captain was a grizzled Terran named Roberts who had spent 40 years moving cargo through the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Heard you folks needed some transportation, he said with a grin. No charge for refugees. Within 2 hours, 17 civilian ships had arrived. Word was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. Independent worlds, merchant guilds, and even some Council member species were sending ships to evacuate the station. But the Council fleet was still coming, and they would not hesitate to destroy civilian vessels if necessary. We need to hurry, Captain Yejin urged. Council battlecruisers do not negotiate. The evacuation began immediately. The largest creatures were loaded onto cargo ships with modified atmospheric systems. Smaller beings were distributed among passenger vessels. The alien staff faced a terrible choice: flee with the prisoners and become criminals, or stay and face execution for failing to stop the evacuation. Most chose to flee. Dr. Zethara was among the first to board a refugee ship. I took an oath to preserve life, she explained. I cannot stay here and watch the Council destroy 47 intelligent beings. Thektar was harder to convince. I have served the Council my entire life. This feels like betrayal. The Council betrayed you first, Hyunwoo replied. They made you a participant in genocide without telling you the truth. In the end, the Commandant chose duty to conscience over duty to authority. He joined the evacuation, bringing with him classified files that would provide even more evidence of Council crimes. The Void Ripper was among the last to leave the station. Before boarding the Free Trader, it stood in its former cage and made a long, mournful vocalization that the translator could not fully interpret. What did it say? Tae-min asked. A prayer for the dead, Mikyung replied quietly. All the beings of all the species who died in places like this. As the civilian fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Council enforcement ships finally arrived. 5 battlecruisers, armed with enough firepower to sterilize an entire world. Attention all vessels, came the transmission from the lead Council ship. You are harboring dangerous criminals and stolen property. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Captain Roberts responded for the civilian fleet. Council vessels, we are carrying refugees fleeing persecution. Under galactic law, we have the right to provide humanitarian assistance. Those are not refugees. They are confirmed monsters and the humans who stole them. But before the Council could act, something unexpected happened. Ships began arriving from all over the galaxy. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Military vessels from independent worlds, merchant fleets, even ships from Council member species who opposed their government's policies. This is Admiral Singh of the Earth Defense Force, came a transmission that made every human cheer. Any attack on humanitarian vessels will be considered an act of war against Earth and her allies. The Council commander found himself facing the largest mixed fleet in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species united in opposition to the Council's attempt to cover up genocide. You cannot protect them forever, the Council commander warned. The galaxy will not be safe while these monsters live. It was the Void Ripper who answered, its voice now broadcast across every ship in the system. We are not monsters, Commander. We are survivors, and the galaxy is finally ready to hear our stories. The jump to hyperspace came as a relief to everyone, but they all knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not give up easily. and the evidence they carried would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Hyunwoo sat beside the Void Ripper in the cargo bay of the Free Trader. The creature was studying star charts, trying to plot courses to regions where its people might have hidden. "Do you really think any of them survived?" Hyunwoo asked. The creature considered the question carefully. "Hope is what kept me alive for 3 years in that cage," it finally replied. "Hope that someday someone would see past the fear and recognize that I am a person. You gave me that hope, Hyunwoo. Now I must have hope that others of my kind still live. And if they do not, then I will ensure that their memory survives. Someone must speak for the dead." Through the cargo bay windows, the lights of 1,000 refugee ships stretched out into the darkness. Each one carried survivors, witnesses, and evidence of the Council's crimes. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the evacuation from Station Omega-7, the trial began on Sanctuary, a neutral world that had declared independence from the Council. The courtroom was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from hundreds of species sat together, many meeting face-to-face for the first time. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim stood at the witness podium, facing a panel of judges from 20 different worlds. Behind him, in specially constructed seating areas, sat 47 beings that the Council had labeled as monsters. Each one was ready to tell their story. "Dr. Kim," the lead judge asked, "please explain to the court how you first made contact with the being known as Prisoner 001. "Prisoner 001 has a name," Hyunwoo replied firmly. "Its name is Velthara, which means voice of peace in its language. I made contact by treating it as an intelligent being rather than a dangerous animal." The Void Ripper, now known by its true name, had learned to speak several galactic languages during its months of freedom. When called to testify, its words were clear and powerful. "I was a diplomatic translator for my people," Velthara explained to the hushed courtroom. "My role was to prevent misunderstandings between species. The irony is not lost on me that the greatest misunderstanding in galactic history led to the destruction of my entire civilization." The evidence presented during the trial was overwhelming. Council records documented the systematic destruction of 43 intelligent species over the past century. Each one had been labeled as a threat and eliminated without any attempt at communication. Dr. Mi Kyung, SEO, presented linguistic analysis proving that every one of the monsters had been attempting peaceful contact when first encountered by Council forces. These beings were trying to introduce themselves, establish trade relations, or seek help for their dying worlds. The Council interpreted every peaceful gesture as an act of aggression. Commander Nari testified about the conditions at the prison facility. The creatures were kept in deliberate sensory deprivation, constant sonic torture, social isolation, and inappropriate feeding designed to maintain them in a state of perpetual stress and aggression. Why would the Council want to maintain them in such a state? The judge asked. Because peaceful, intelligent beings would expose the lie that they were dangerous monsters. The Council needed them to appear threatening to justify their continued imprisonment. Dektar's testimony was perhaps the most damaging. As a former Council commandant, his words carried enormous weight. "I served the Council faithfully for 30 years, believing we were protecting the galaxy from mindless predators. The truth is that we were the predators. We were the monsters. But the most powerful moment came when Velthara presented evidence that some of its people might still be alive. Deep space monitoring stations had detected transmissions from the dark nebulae, signals that matched the communication patterns of the destroyed civilizations. My people are still out there, Velthara declared, hiding in the void, afraid to make contact because they know the Council will try to destroy them. How many other species are living in similar fear? The answer came from an unexpected source. During the trial's third week, ships began arriving at Sanctuary from the deepest regions of space. They came from the galactic rim, from dark nebulae, from regions that had been declared uninhabitable by the Council. Each ship carried survivors. The crew of the Free Trader, now led by Captain Roberts and his mixed species crew, had been searching for months. They found hidden colonies, refugee fleets, and scattered populations of dozens of species that were supposed to be extinct. 43 destroyed civilizations, Dr. So-Young Lee reported to the court. But we have found survivors from 31 of them. They have been living in exile, afraid to reveal themselves. The reunion between Velthara and its surviving people was broadcast across the galaxy. The great creature that had been feared as a monster wept tears of joy as it embraced fellow survivors it had thought were dead. But the council was not finished. Even as the trial proceeded, their remaining loyal forces were mobilizing for a final assault on Sanctuary. They could not allow the truth to spread any further. The attack came during the trial's final week. Council battle fleets surrounded the planet, demanding that all survivors be turned over for proper containment. "These beings are too dangerous to remain free," Council Admiral Corvex announced. "Sanctuary will surrender them immediately or face the consequences." It was then that humanity made its choice. Captain Yejin Kang stood before the assembled refugee fleet and made an announcement that would change galactic history. The Earth Alliance formally recognizes all survivors as citizens under our protection. Any attack on them will be treated as an attack on Earth itself. The declaration was quickly joined by dozens of other independent worlds. Species that had been silent council members for centuries suddenly found their voices and chose to stand with the survivors. The final confrontation took place in the space above Sanctuary. Council forces faced the largest coalition fleet in galactic history. But instead of opening fire, something unprecedented happened. Velthara broadcast a message to every ship in both fleets. "We do not want war. We never wanted war. We came in peace, we lived in peace, and we still hope for peace. But we will not be caged again." One by one, council ships began standing down. Crews who had spent their lives following orders suddenly understood what those orders had really meant. They had been enforcers of genocide, not protectors of civilization. When Admiral Corvex found himself commanding only a handful of still loyal vessels, he made a final, desperate threat. "If we cannot contain these monsters, we will destroy them and this entire system." The Admiral's remaining ships powered their weapons, preparing to fire on the refugee fleet. In that moment, as energy readings spiked across sensor arrays, Hyun-Woo made a decision that would define the future of galactic civilization. He requested an open channel to every ship in the system. Standing beside Velthara on the bridge of the Free Trader, he faced the cameras that would broadcast his words across known space. "Admiral Corvex," he said calmly, "you are about to commit genocide against beings who have never harmed you. Beings who tried to make peace with your people for decades before you destroyed their worlds. They are monsters," Corvex replied, his voice filled with desperate conviction. "They will destroy everything if they are allowed to live." Hyun-Woo smiled then, not with arrogance or mockery, but with the gentle confidence of someone who had spent months learning the truth. "Admiral, I want you to watch something." The transmission switched to show the refugee ships. In the cargo bays and passenger compartments, survivors from dozens of species worked together. They shared food, tended to each other's young, and collaborated on projects to improve their temporary homes. "These are your monsters, Admiral. Look at them." The cameras showed Velthara teaching human children about stellar navigation while its own young played games with offspring from 6 different species. They showed former prisoners working as engineers, doctors, teachers, and artists. They showed beings who had every reason to hate the galaxy, instead choosing to heal and build. "This is what you want to destroy," Hyun-Woo continued. "Not monsters, not threats, people, families, children who have never hurt anyone." Corvex's response was barely audible. They're supposed to be dangerous." "They were dangerous," Velthara said, its translated voice carrying across every speaker in the system. "We were dangerous because you made us dangerous. Pain and fear and isolation will turn any being into a monster, but kindness can turn them back into people." The Admiral's ships held their targeting locks, but no weapons fired. Across the Council fleet, crew members were watching the same broadcasts, seeing the same evidence of cooperation and peace among beings they had been taught to fear. "Stand down your weapons, Admiral," came a new voice. It was Captain Chen of the Council ship Harmony, one of Corvex's own vessels. "I will not fire on children." "You are in violation of direct orders," Corvex snapped. "I am following a higher law," Chen replied. "The law that says intelligent beings have the right to exist." One by one, the remaining Council ships powered down their weapons. Admiral Corvex found himself alone, commanding a single vessel against the entire galaxy. "This is not over," he transmitted as his ship turned to leave. "The Council will not accept this rebellion." "The Council is already over," Commander Nari replied from the New Sol. "Half your member worlds have declared independence. The other half are demanding trials for their own leaders. You represent a government that no longer exists. As Corvex's ship jumped to hyperspace, the largest celebration in galactic history began. On Sanctuary and aboard thousands of ships, beings who had been enemies for generations embraced as friends. The trial concluded 3 days later with verdicts that reshaped galactic law. The council was formally dissolved, its leaders sentenced for crimes against sapient life. More importantly, new laws were established guaranteeing the rights of all intelligent beings, regardless of species or origin. Velthara was elected as the first ambassador of survivor species, tasked with helping other hidden populations integrate into galactic society. Its first act was to establish the Institute for Interspecies Understanding, with Dr. Hyun-Woo Kim as its director. We will teach what you taught me. 5 years after the fall of the council, Dr. Hyun-Woo Kim stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching ships arrive from every corner of the galaxy. The annual Galactic Peace Summit had grown from a small gathering of survivor species to the largest diplomatic event in recorded history. Impressive, is it not? Velthara approached on silent feet, its crystalline form now decorated with ceremonial markings that indicated its status as Elder Ambassador. 5 years ago, many of these species had never heard of each other. Now they worked together as if they had been allies for centuries. Through the transparent walls, Hyunwoo could see ships from over 200 different civilizations. Some were familiar designs from the old council territories. Others were completely alien, representing species that had only recently emerged from hiding in the galaxy's darkest corners. The Zephyrians finally agreed to join the alliance. Velthara continued, gesturing to a cluster of ships that looked like living flowers. They were convinced that surface dwellers would pollute their ocean worlds. It took 2 years of patient negotiation to prove we could be trusted. Hyunwoo smiled, remembering the breakthrough moment when Dr. So-Young Lee had discovered that the Zephyrians communicated through water temperature changes. The first successful translation had been a simple message: we are afraid. Fear is still our biggest challenge, he observed. Even now, even with all the evidence of peaceful cooperation, some species still expect betrayal. Can you blame them? Velthara asked gently. Many of these peoples have been hiding for generations. Their children were born believing that contact with other species meant death. The station's intercom announced the arrival of another delegation. This one made both Hyunwoo and Velthara turn in surprise. The ships were massive, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Void Shepherds, Velthara breathed. I thought they were extinct. The Void Shepherds had been one of the first species destroyed by the Old Council, their crime being that they could manipulate gravity and space-time in ways that terrified other civilizations. For 3 years, search teams had looked for survivors without success. How did they find us? Hyunwoo asked. They have been watching, came a new voice. Engineer Taemin Choi joined them at the observation window, his tablet showing sensor readings from the approaching ships. Our deep space monitors detected them months ago, but they stayed hidden until now. Why reveal themselves during the summit? Because, Taemin said with a grin, their children insisted. The young Void Shepherds have been monitoring our broadcasts. They want to attend the Youth Exchange program. The Youth Exchange program had been Hyunwoo's idea, inspired by watching children from different species play together naturally, while their parents struggled with ancient fears. Young beings from across the galaxy spent months on Unity Station, learning from each other and forming friendships that would shape the future. Children are our greatest hope, Velthara agreed. They have not yet learned to hate. As they watched, a smaller ship detached from the Void Shepherd fleet and approached the station's docking bays. Through the ship's transparent sections, they could see young beings who looked like living shadows, their forms shifting and changing as they moved. Prepare the welcome committee, Hyunwoo said to Taemin, and make sure the other children know we have new friends arriving. The docking proceeded smoothly, a testament to 5 years of practice in accommodating radically different species. The station's atmospheric systems automatically adjusted to provide the energy-based environment that Void Shepherds required. When the airlock opened, 3 young Void Shepherds emerged, their forms stabilizing into roughly humanoid shapes. Behind them came 2 adults who moved with the careful precision of parents entering enemy territory. Dr. Mikyung Seo was there to greet them, her translation equipment already calibrated for their unique communication method of controlled gravitational pulses. The first exchange was tentative, formal, cautious. Then one of the young void shepherds broke away from the group and ran toward a cluster of children from a dozen different species. The universal language of play needed no translation. "Tag, you are it," shouted a young human girl, touching the void shepherd child before running away laughing. The young void shepherd's form rippled with what could only be joy as it gave chase, its gravitational abilities allowing it to run up walls and across ceilings. Soon all the children were playing a complex game that used 3 dimensions and required cooperation between species with completely different abilities. The adult void shepherds watched in amazement. "Our children have been lonely for so long," one of them told Mi-kyung through the translator. "We thought they would never have friends." "All children need friends," Mi-kyung replied. "That is one thing that never changes, no matter how different the species." The formal welcome ceremony took place in Unity Station's Great Hall, a vast space designed to accommodate beings of every size and environmental need. Representatives from 200 civilizations gathered to witness the Void, Shepard's first public appearance in over a century. The ceremony followed protocols that had been carefully developed over 5 years of summits. Each species was invited to share something from their culture, whether it was music, art, food, or stories. The goal was not just diplomacy, but genuine cultural exchange. The Void Shepherd's contribution was breathtaking. They created a miniature galaxy in the center of the hall, complete with stars, planets, and the invisible forces that held everything together. It was both art and science lesson, showing how their people had learned to work with the fundamental forces of the universe. "Beautiful," whispered Captain Ye-Jin Kang, now serving as Unity Station's commander. "They are artists, not weapons." The council was afraid of their power, Velthara observed. They never stopped to consider what that power might create instead of destroy. But the most significant moment came when the young Void Shepherds presented their own gift to the assembly. Working together, they created a display showing the hidden civilizations that still existed in the galaxy's most remote regions. "There are others," the eldest young Void Shepherd explained through the translator. "Many others. Our people have been keeping watch, protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The display showed dozens of civilizations that had never been contacted by the old council. Some lived in alternate dimensions, others existed as pure energy. A few had evolved beyond physical form entirely. "They are all afraid to make contact," the young being continued. "They have heard stories of what happened to species that revealed themselves." Administrator Veltak, now serving as head of the integration committee, leaned forward with interest. "Would they be willing to meet with our diplomatic teams? Perhaps, if the meetings were arranged carefully, and if children were part of the delegation." The suggestion caused excited murmurs throughout the hall. The idea of child ambassadors was radical, but it had proven effective before. Young beings seemed naturally better at seeing past physical differences. To recognize common thoughts and feelings, we could establish a children's diplomatic corps, suggested Dr. Lee, from her position with the Cultural Exchange Division. Young ambassadors trained in peaceful contact protocols. Lieutenant Colonel Jin-Soo Yoon, now coordinating security for the Alliance, raised practical concerns. The parents will never agree to send their children into potentially dangerous situations. "Then we bring the hidden civilizations here," Hyun-woo said simply. "To Unity Station. Let them see what we have built. Let their children play with our children." The proposal was debated for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The Alliance had been founded on the principle that understanding was always better than fear. If there were civilizations still hiding from galactic society, then it was their responsibility to create safe ways for contact to occur. Over the following months, the Void Shepherds served as intermediaries, carefully approaching hidden civilizations with offers of friendship. The responses were mixed. Some species agreed to secret meetings. Others requested more time to consider. A few sent messages of gratitude but chose to remain hidden for now. The first breakthrough came with the luminous ones, beings of pure energy, who had been observing galactic civilization for millennia without ever making contact. They agreed to visit Unity Station, but only if special containment systems could be built to prevent their energy forms from damaging the station's electronics. Engineer Taemin led the modification project, working with Void Shepherd technicians to create chambers that could safely contain energy-based life forms. The work took months, but it resulted in new technologies that would benefit every species in the Alliance. When the luminous ones finally arrived, they appeared as graceful, shifting patterns of light that seemed to dance through their specially prepared habitat. Their first message, transmitted through quantum fluctuations, was simple. We have been waiting so long to speak with others. Their children were even more remarkable. Young luminous ones could take physical form for short periods, allowing them to interact directly with other species. Watching a being of pure light play hide-and-seek with a young Zephyrian and a human child was a sight that no one who witnessed it would ever forget. They learn from each other, observed Dr. Slow as she documented the interactions. Not just language or customs, but ways of thinking. Ways of seeing the universe. The young luminous one had taught the human child to perceive energy patterns that were normally invisible. In return, the human had shared the concept of physical touch, something the energy beings had never experienced. Imagine what they will accomplish when they grow up, Velthara mused. A generation that truly understands multiple forms of existence. As the year progressed, more hidden civilizations emerged from the shadows. The crystalline hive mind sent diplomatic crystals that could communicate through harmonic resonance. The phase walkers, who existed partially outside normal spacetime, agreed to limited contact through specially trained telepaths. Each new contact brought challenges but also discoveries. The hive minds had developed mathematical concepts that revolutionized Alliance computing systems. The phase walkers shared navigation techniques that allowed ships to travel through previously impossible routes. We are becoming something new, Captain Yejin reflected during one of their planning meetings. Not just an alliance of species, but a true galactic civilization. A civilization based on inclusion rather than exclusion, Hyunwoo agreed. On curiosity rather than fear. The transformation was most visible in the children. The second generation of Alliance youth spoke multiple languages fluently, thought in concepts that bridged different forms of existence, and approached problems with perspectives that no single species could have developed alone. When a crisis emerged in the Outer Rim, it was a mixed team of young people who proposed the solution. A dying star threatened to destroy 3 inhabited systems, and conventional technology could not prevent the disaster. We need to combine Void Shepherd gravity manipulation with Luminous One energy redirection and crystalline hive mind computational power, explained Minji Park, a teenage human who had grown up on Unity Station. No single species can save those worlds, but together we can. The rescue mission that followed was the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. Ships from dozens of civilizations worked together, each contributing their unique abilities to move 3 planets to safer orbits around a younger star. Impossible, the old council would have declared. But the Alliance had learned that impossible was just another word for, we have not learned how yet. As Hyunwoo watched the successful conclusion of the rescue mission, he thought about how far they had all come. 5 years ago, the galaxy had been ruled by fear and suspicion. Now it was guided by cooperation and hope. What are you thinking? Velthara asked, joining him at the observation window. I am thinking about that first day in your cage, Hyunwoo replied. When I offered you an apple and you thought I might be trying to poison you. I remember. You smiled and waited patiently while I decided whether to trust you. And now look at us, an entire galaxy learning to trust each other. Velthara's crystalline form shimmered with amusement. It all started with one human who was not afraid to feed the monster. You were never a monster, Hyunwoo said firmly. You were just hungry. Hungry for food, for understanding, for companionship. Perhaps that is what we all were. Hungry for connection. As they watched, a new ship approached Unity Station. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before, suggesting yet another hidden civilization ready to emerge from isolation. Shall we go welcome our new friends? Velthara asked. Hyunwoo smiled, the same gentle smile that had started everything 5 years ago. Of course, someone should be there to offer them something to eat. Together they walked toward the docking bays, ready to extend the hand of friendship to yet another species that had spent too long alone in the darkness. The galaxy was vast, and there were still countless civilizations waiting to be discovered. But now they had something that had never existed before, a proven method for turning fear into friendship, isolation into cooperation, and monsters into allies. It all started with a smile, a gift of food, and the revolutionary idea that even the most dangerous being might just need someone to treat them with kindness. The future had never looked brighter.